you. Oh, we could be laughing about it, making the most of the true British climate. Oh, it's getting hot in here.
Oh my God.
Oh, is that me now? Well, let's kind of stuff the opening, because I was going to ask you all what you do. Hello, welcome along to this panel, this discussion. My name is Janice Long, and it's all to do with A&R. And what is A&R and what part does it play in the record industry these days? Have times changed? That means it has a different role. And as you know, we've got Nick Burgess here from Virgin, who is responsible for signing Bastille. We have, of course, Dan Smith, who's just must be loving every moment of his success at the moment. Bad Blood went straight in at number 1 at the beginning of March. It's been in the top 10 for 9 weeks. And I bought it. And right at the end, we have Polly Comber, who is Black Fox Management and looks after Bastille alongside a ghostwriter and has obviously played an integral part in Bastille's success. So let's kick it off first. You are the A&R man, Nick.
Yes.
What do you see your job as? Because I don't know. I mean, I know an A&R man, you know, will find something and play a part in getting a band signed. But at what point does it all start?
I think the overall thing about being an A&R man is my job is to manage the music of an artist. I guess that's the main thing. And you start with identifying it, really. I think the most important thing is to identify the artist and find who you like. I mean, everyone loves music, so that's the easy bit. But it's not just about loving music, it's about finding music that you think has a market and can work within the confines of the media and the market.
So does that mean you can go and see a band, but you have to visualise where it's going to be, how you can place it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's about a vision, A&R, really. You see it, and most bands are really... The finished product that you end up buying is nothing like the product that I see when I go into a rehearsal room and they've got 2 half-finished songs and they can't hardly play. And like, the Kooks, when I signed them when they were 17, they literally had 1 song. Guitarists had been playing for 6 months. They didn't understand how to use their instruments properly. Didn't know how to make an album. I mean, they had no idea about turning a band from a little rehearsal room in Brighton into a million-selling, like, global sort of act. And that is my job, is to manage the music and to manage the CD. I find, but it's identifying it and then creating the finished product. I mean.
Well, obviously, I want to talk to Dan in just a moment about, how he feels about the whole A&R process and how he got to this point. But how did you hear about Bastille, first of all?
Well, I guess I was quite lucky because I've known Polly for years. She used to be in a publishing A&R girl, and she was a friend of mine.
Polly's done loads of stuff before.
Yeah, so she was a friend of mine, and she just sent me it. We were friends, and she sent me it, and I thought, this is good. And then I saw a show, and as soon as I saw the show, I walked in there. And there was 250 kids singing along to every word. And I was just like, am I being had off here? I was literally thinking, have I been set up by someone? 'Cause I'd never
It was like Rent a Crowd or something.
I'd never heard him. I thought maybe he busted a load of his mates.
Yeah, you thought we brought our mates down.
Yeah, and but then I sort of twigged that I was actually... And it was really normal people. That was the most important thing for me, because you can see 250 kids in a room watching a band, but they could be kind of specialist kids that you think, well, 250 kids of normal people means, and I've never heard of them, means that if you multiply that exponentially, you're going to get... You can get 10,000 kids, and you can get 100,000 kids, because they're normal people. And I always look at the audience as much as I look at the act and who's interacting with them. I mean, connectivity is the most important thing for me. So I just look for connectivity, and if I see that, and the talent is there, then I kind of think that's the key to signing an act for me.
Well, let's go back to that night when did you know that Nick was going to be in the audience, Dan?
No.
Because I was thinking it must be nerve-wracking because I've done A&R myself, and people, the bands are told blah blah is going to be in the audience, and somebody from this company is going to be in the audience, and that must be quite nerve-wracking. So if you don't know, then you're not playing to anybody other than your fan base, are you?
Yeah, no, I think we were quite lucky in that respect. I think kind of, we had no idea Nick was going to be there, and I think there were quite a few people there that night, and you
just did a gig, as you do.
But I think Polly did quite a good job at kind of not really letting us, just keeping us quite separate from all that kind of stuff. And when it came to sort of, getting a record deal was something that would have been nice, but was never like the aim, obviously. and we'd always just, that was quite early on, but we'd just sort of been getting on with it, planning releases and tours and all that kind of stuff, and it didn't really kind of occur to us, and I only found out after, like, the next day that anyone had even been there.
Well, take us back to the time before you met Polly, because obviously we'll bring Polly in a moment, but take us back to the time when you decided that music was going to be your future. How old were you?
I don't know, I'd left uni, so like early 20s.
Uh-huh.
And probably like 20, 21. And moved back to London. It's really boring. Sorry.
But we just need to know how you got to the stage, you see.
I'd been sort of writing some songs and doing some recordings kind of by myself. And then I met some of the guys. We started playing together, Woody and Will, who were in the band. Mm. And it was just a lot more fun to play with other people. And I'd been managed by this quite big company that sort of got involved, and I was with them for a little while and realised that it wasn't really for me. And so got the band together in like 2010 and left that management company and just sort of started things ourselves. And it came from, I don't know, I'd recorded a bunch of songs in my room that became the first like batch of Bastille songs, and we were sort of after work, sorry, my phone's buzzing, after work, like at night, rehearsing. It was,
And how did you manage to get gigs and stuff? Were you doing all of that on your own, or was it the management company, or what?
I don't know how we're getting gigs. I think we sort of really benefited from the dying wheeze of MySpace. In that, I remember I had some friends who were in a band, and they'd sort of put some songs online, and had met lots of people and through it, and got lots of gigs off the back of it, and they kind of suggested that we did the same, so I put some songs on MySpace, and it was a really weird thing where kind of in the days that followed, lots of kind of managers and lawyers and all those kind of people who at the time seemed like, a world away, sort of started getting in touch, a really weird couple of weeks with lots of emails, and went to loads of meetings and got very confused. But yeah, no, it was weird. I'm missing out a massive gap where before that I'd met this guy called Mark who I co-produced our album with. Oh. And me and him had kind of that's what I guess took it musically from what it had been before into kind of what it is now. Because before it had been me recording songs by myself, and then it became me taking songs to him and us kind of working on them, making them bigger. And that's sort of where our kind of sound came from as Bastille. But
sorry to jump in on there, but I think one of the key things with the development that you were talking about is you sort of got an identity, which is I look for the most important thing, is just finding a sound. Because a lot of artists just have disparate, it's music, but music's not kind of enough on its own. It has to have an identity, it has to have a lifestyle, it has to sort of sound like the artist knows what it's doing. And Dan, I think, probably will agree that sort of made it, when working with a producer that made a sound that made it actually all come together, and suddenly it wasn't just a disparate collection of songs.
Yeah, it was cool. I like working with someone who knows what they're doing makes a massive difference, obviously. I don't know. He's the first person that I worked with who, because I'd never worked with a producer before, so he was the first person that I'd worked with who I could sort of say how I wanted things to sound, and he could just help make it happen, which was amazing. So that helped massively. And I think it was when we put our first songs up online, because he's sort of quite technical and stuff, the songs that were there, or the demos that had been sort of like he'd enhanced, sounded quite finished, and I think it was just suddenly a few songs up online, the more people were getting in touch. I think it sounded probably further down the line than we actually were at the time. Yeah.
But you had a good, that was the body of the album, really, when I first heard your music, it was basically the album, wasn't it? Really, nine songs, I think you had, didn't you? Yeah,
sorry.
But for you now, I'm just saying, when you left uni, it was 2010, and here we are, not that long after, 3 years, and you've got this, huge success.
It was a bit longer than that. I'd been kind of doing gigs by myself, and had met Woody and Will like a couple of years before that, so it'd been a few years. But yeah, no, I don't know. I feel like the time before, when like Paulie got involved and stuff, I'd had a few years to kind of figure out how I wanted to write songs, how I wanted it to sound. It was quite, and I think the most important thing in terms of, I don't know, people, I'm in a weird position where I sometimes meet people who kind of ask like for advice, and I definitely don't feel in any way worthy of giving it, but the only thing that I would say to them is, and so I'm massively contradicting myself, is just to like figure out like how you want to write songs and be really, really hard on yourself. And I think I'd had the time to figure out the different sounds that we wanted the band, how we wanted the band to sound.
Yeah.
And to build up like a body of work and a body of songs, because you hear so much like of there'll be a band will emerge with one wicked tune and they'll get snapped up or something, and
then they disappear.
can't back it up with other stuff. You know, there'll be an album with one or two good songs and a load of filler. And I don't know. I guess I think we had the time and the lack of hype and the lack of pressure to just get on with trying to make an album that we thought would be good and that we would want to listen to make a collection of songs that I feel like there's no filler on our album. Like whether or not you like it, I feel like we were fighting over which songs to put on rather than desperately trying to fill it up.
Well, we can talk more about that in a moment, that whole process. But Polly, you haven't said a word yet, so welcome along, Polly Comber from Black Fox Management. Now, you had been involved in A&R and publishing prior to doing management, which is a completely different ballgame, I would have thought. You're going out looking at stuff differently or not? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. When I was doing A&R, I was doing publishing, so we had a bit more time. It wasn't kind of the frantic, let's get a record out. So I would sign stuff like the Cribs, who didn't have a record deal for, say, a year and a half, 2 years. And I would help them get to that point to get a record deal. So kind of like quasi-managing them, but not... I mean, they didn't have a manager at the time. I found them a manager. Things like Athlete, I signed before they did records, although that happened very quickly. So my artist development was kind of where I was at. That was kind of what I was interested in taking time, getting it right, doing it methodically, building fan bases. And I guess that I'd had so much experience in that when I found Dan on MySpace, and who I instantly loved. And I just thought it was really honest and genuine, and the songs were fantastic. And when I met him, the whole thing made sense to me.
And all of that stuff, that sort of development and time that you were talking about when you're doing publishing, it's slightly different. But you could put all of that expertise into it, couldn't you?
I mean, the first thing I said to the guys was like, we're not going to get a record deal. We're going to put out some records ourselves. We're going to build a fan base. We'll bring in some online PR, and we'll just do it ourselves for a year, which is what we did, essentially.
Because the deal wasn't the goal, was it, as you say?
Well, I always said, like, if somebody wants to come on board, that's fine. I'm not going to close the door.
No.
But I just didn't see a major label as necessarily the right thing to do at that time. And I had other plans as well if that didn't happen. I always knew that Bastille would break somehow.
So tell us what you did then. How did it start? You find Dan on MySpace, you go, I like you.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, right,
No, he
okay.
actually didn't get back to me.
Didn't he?
No. He had another manager at the
Why
time.
not, Dan? Oh, right. Explain.
And then my
Didn't like her profile picture.
Didn't like my profile. He actually didn't get back to me, and then my scout at the time said he's put up a new track called Flaws, the beginning of January 2011, I think it was. And I heard that, and I went, get him in or give him another call. And it just so happened he literally just split with his manager, so it was perfect timing. And then that's how we met. And we went from there. What I didn't know was he was talking to loads of other managers. So I thought I just had it in the bag the whole time. And actually there was about 5 other managers involved as well who wanted to manage him.
So why did he pick you and why did you pick her?
I've actually never asked him that.
Oh, God. I guess I'd come out of an experience with a big company. And the experience was fine. It wasn't particularly negative. I just had realised it really wasn't for me, and so I was really drawn to. I don't know. I guess Polly just seemed like a really. This sounds really insulting, but really nice, normal person, and the kind of polar opposite of what I'd come out of, and that just really appealed to me at the time. You know, there was no bullshit at all. There was no sort of like false hope yet. Meeting managers is a really interesting experience, and it only happened for a couple of weeks, and it's only happened to me once, but it was actually twice. But it's just so bizarre meeting different people who and realizing different people's styles and their ways of trying to like draw you in or whatever. And there was just I got the impression that Polly genuinely liked the songs, and that meant a lot. And kind of wanted to help and wasn't being like, right, we're gonna get you a record. Like other managers had been banging on about a record deal and all those kind of things, which, if you can get it, it's great, but that shouldn't be the be-all and end-all.
So Polly's agenda was quite different from other people that you'd experienced, and what strikes me is that, and it's something that comes up, it's being a fan of music, because I don't think there are any experts, really. I mean, I was talking about this with you before. I mean, who's an expert on music? Actually, at the end of the day, doesn't it just boil down to, I like that.
Yeah.
And you get that tingle in your tummy and that excitement or whatever.
Yeah. But I think anyone can like music. I don't know.
What takes it a step further? What
I think
gives
you
an A&R
have to
person-
understand
Yes.
music. I think mainly, and I think you just have to be really open to learning as well. I mean, I think it takes about 4 years to learn how to do A&R. It's a really it seems like the easiest job in the world. It's like managing a football team from the outside. It's like,
Looks
no one
easy.
can manage a football team. 11 players on easy, go out and play football. But actually, being an A&R guy, it's so complex, the actual business side of it, and actually turning.
Well, people don't realise about the business side. You see, a lot of perception would be that an A&R person goes out along with a lot of other A&R people. How many A&R people does it take to change a light bulb? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, but that's the hardest thing, making a decision. I mean, the responsibility is all on you. That's the thing that I don't think. It's like going back to the football. Like, it's easy making decisions for other people, but when the decision is you and no one is going to stop, whatever you decide will be the fate of your career and other people's career. And then what happens is, if you ever make a mistake, you lose your confidence. That's what like when people say A&R people are sheep, it's not because they are sheep. It's because when you, as a human being, as you lose your confidence, you start looking around you and you stop trusting your gut instinct. And you've only got your gut instinct as an A&R person. It's the only thing that you've got to survive on. And if you lose that, you then look at other people, what they're doing, and think, oh, that guy says it's really good, so I'm not sure about my own gut. So you then start going in that, and that's what happens. But confidence is everything, and you just got to keep hold of it. And even when you have a failure, it's the strength of character to come back and still believe that you're right eventually.
So we'll take us through the process with Dan, because you go and see the band. You're absolutely knocked out by the fact that they've got this fan base.
Yeah.
There's 250 people in the audience who absolutely
Yeah,
love them.
yeah,
You go
yeah.
home that night.
Yeah. Well,
And
me
do
and Polly
what?
went out for dinner afterwards, and she was just like, "So, do you want to sign him or what?" I was like,
Despite
fucking hell. Yeah.
a record you'll never have
Keeping
in
it
the
cool
plan.
there. And I was like, well, let's go. I want to meet Dan, because I literally went down to the studio the next day or the next couple of days, and
Polly
and
called me and was like, "Don't," like, because it was our single launch for Floors, like
Right.
the first time round.
Yeah.
We released it on like vinyl, on this little label, and so that was quite a big night for us.
That was a
And you
great
called me at
night
like
for
2 in the
us.
morning, we're like, "Stop!"
yeah, I remember that actually. Yeah, it was good. But I just went down and he played. I met Dan and I liked him immediately, because you're looking for oddity as well, in a way. You're looking for people who aren't just normal people.
Were you looking
Well,
for
you want something
sincerity and
special.
Yeah,
honesty
you're looking for an
in the
identity
music
and
and
something that people can invest in and believe in, and most artists in general, not just music, music's just an expression of the soul, and no one really is that interested in soul for people who don't really have anything to say. So you've got to find people with something to say. That's the most important thing. And then you've got to. He just played me the tracks, and every track was really good. And I think, is this just me thinking this is really? I was getting a bit freaked out by it, because the whole. And then he played Pompeii, actually, and that was the moment I literally was like, okay, so now I don't even have to think about this at all. So I literally just offered the next day, didn't I? I was actually at a different label. I was actually at Sony when I offered. But I was leaving Sony, so I basically just said to them, can you just hold on for 2 months? I'm going somewhere else. And that, you know what?
Sony were pissed off.
Totally, especially now, yeah. My name was Mud in that building. But literally, the loyalty, loyalty is a very rare thing in music business. But to be fair to Polly and Dan, they literally went, okay. They went, we'll wait.
That was a really weird time, because that would have been really quick, because we'd been gigging for a few months. We just released our first single, and Nick offered at Sony in July, I think, and that would have been ridiculous, because we'd have been around for like half a year. But with what happened with you leaving Sony, that was the first time a sort of record had ever even really been an option, and so suddenly having that kind of dangled and then essentially taken away. It was quite a weird, like, the second half of that year for us was about kind of, being like, shit, what do we do next?
Well, we put another single out. We did. That was my point.
Yeah, so we put out, so Polly was like, fuck it, doesn't matter that, that's not happening. We're just going to get on with it. You were always like, you may never get a record deal. So we put out an EP, like, just kept writing songs and recording and stuff. And it was only really at the end when you joined Virgin, and at the end of the year, that will happen. I guess, which is still very quick, you know, I guess.
Yeah, so I offered on the first day of Virgin, literally the day I started, I put another offer in. I was like, again, my name was Bud.
You've got loads of stars at
literally,
Virgin on your jacket.
I just walked into Virgin and said, I'm trying to sign this band Bastille. Can someone help me out? I didn't know anyone there. I went to the head of business affairs and said, I'm offering on this band. They were like, really? And I was like, yeah. And then the same day, in Warner's office. I was like,
unlucky for you, you waited like 6 months.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, like, because I think that's the thing that's always been really interesting with us is that, like, we've always managed to have people come to our shows. You know, our shows often kind of sell out, which is completely mental. And I don't know, online we've always had a bit of a fan base, but it's interesting seeing the sort of cycles. Like with the industry, no one really seemed to give a shit for quite a long time, which is completely fine, apart from Nick, which was great. But then, unfortunately for him, second time round, a bunch of other people kind of perked up.
Well, that was after it went to number 14 in the iTunes charts on an indie single.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I just ask you, Nick, because this could happen the other way around, and I've seen it with lots of bands where they sign because of an A&R person who's a huge fan. The A&R person suddenly moves to another company, and they're left on the shelves.
Yeah, it happens.
I mean, that's awful.
It's yeah, and it's just part of life, isn't it? You know, major labels, their turnover is incredibly quick, and actually people don't realise that. You know, people say A&R is what a bunch of twats sort of thing, but you think my career is as tenuous as anyone's. You know, how many A&R people last 20, 30 years in the way artists? It's like I've got a 3-year contract, I can get fired anytime. So we're all freaking out all the time. So we're under immense pressure. That's like constant. The only way you can judge an A&R guy is how paranoid they are. That's literally the only, they're literally, because it's a competitive sport as well. So, you know, and everyone thinks signing a band's easy. I mean, if I was to go to a band and say I want to sign you, that would be great. But what happens is 95% of the time, everyone wants to sign them all. There's so you're basically then the tables are totally turned, and you're trying to sell yourself to an artist like absolute crazy, like doing everything you can to get them to sign to you. If only, you know,
it's such a funny process because we had a very minimal experience of it, to be honest. There was, you know, I met in the space of a week. I'd sort of known Nick for a while, but in the space of a week, then met sort of maybe 4 or 5 other people. And actually, to be fair to Polly, we didn't take a lot of meetings because it felt so false. I remember meeting one A&R guy in particular, and I wish I remembered exactly what he said.
Just name him.
No, we can't name
Shame.
But it was. Oh yeah, he was trying to like argue to me because I think, you know, he'd sort of been aware of it for a while and didn't like it, which is completely cool, whatever. But he was arguing how it's actually like quite a good look from an A&R guy if they're really late on something. It means that, and he was arguing for the fact, it was brilliant. And I was sitting there, and you know, I'm a bit of an idiot, but I'm not a complete idiot. And I was sitting there with my mouth open, being like, are you actually putting this forward as a reason for why we should? Anyway, it was funny, but I don't know, it was minimal meetings.
There was a time when you were, I mean, let's get this out in the open here. There was a time when you were considering signing to Warner's, weren't you?
Oh, yeah.
And Polly actually phoned me up on a Friday night. I was driving home from work, and she goes, you know what, Nick, I think you might have lost this one. I think it's going to Warner's. And I was like, you are kidding me. And she was like, no, I think it's not looking good. And she said, whatever you do, don't phone Dan over the weekend. He's doing something really serious with his band. And I just phoned you, didn't I, in the pub on a Saturday night?
Yeah.
No one listens.
And I don't know what
that was awful.
You just phoned up Polly.
And did that make a difference?
Well, you know what? We the only thing I can equate it to is there's like certain things in I sound like such a knob. There's certain things in life where you have proper forks in the road. And I remember like picking a university to go to. I had like leaving school. I had like 6 options, and it was literally looking at them as like 6 different lives, and it terrified me because I was like, you know, I could go down that route and die. I could go down that route and completely fuck up my life. I could go down that route and be a, you know, whatever. You've got no idea what's going to happen. And this was one of those, and I think it was between a few people, but it was mainly Nick and Warner. And it was there when it comes to like, you know, it's gross to call it a career, but when it comes to your career and your band or whatever, these 2 or 3 or 4 options, you just don't know what's going to happen. You just don't. And I think the only reason we considered Warner was because of what was happening at EMI, because we were going into a major label knowing that they were about to be sold, and that was everyone, you know, and you know, A&R guys, as well as having to sell themselves, have to sell their labels, they also try and fuck you up mentally. They'll be like, you know, I was getting calls from the Warner people being like, you're making a massive mistake, you're
mind games.
Yeah, like big full-on mind games. And like, you know, again, I'm not that much of an idiot. You can feel yourself being manipulated, and it's weird. But that was the main reason. But I don't know. like to think I'm a vaguely nice person, and I think loyalty very much.
We know you are.
Thanks.
I remember back in the 80s, a band from Liverpool called the Icicle Works, and people were chasing them for publishing. And Warner Chappell, the guy from Warner Chappell, really loved them, wanted it so badly. And then there was a guy from another company, I can't remember. And the Icicle Works decided to go with the other guy. And they had to break the news to the guy from Warner Chappell. And he burst into tears. And they went, hang on, we're going with you. Because they realised he was the fan. I know that story because it was my brother who actually signed them, or Jeff. But yes, because that relationship is crucial. And I'm just thinking now that there you are, you're really interested, you've gone out for dinner, you've spoken about it, the guy from Warner's in there, you're making phone calls. Eventually it's decided that you're going to sign to Virgin.
Oh, I know what it was.
Oh, what was it?
I had a conversation with the A&R guy from Warner, because I was really stressed. I called him up and was like, right, how do you see our album looking? Like, what do you think? And actually, I'm sorry, it's hard to remember all this stuff, but the honest truth was that you were the only person who, well, not you were the only person, of the two of them, you were the one who were just going to let us get on with it. Because when it came to him, he wanted me to co-write with other people, he wanted me to... there were songs that have ended up on the album that he said he didn't like, and I was like, ooh, I don't know. He hadn't actually heard Pompeii, which is interesting. But, you know, that was the main thing.
Because that's a special relationship you have, and that's when you all sort of join forces at some point, don't you? Because you've sort of brokered this deal, and then you're signed. But then comes the point where you have to say what you think. You might not like it. You might not like it. How does that relationship develop when you all trust each other?
But I guess
if you're going to take a verse out, don't like that verse, tighten that up, drop that track.
Yeah, that's the hardest bit of A&R, is actually sort of telling artists what to do when they make mistakes. I mean, my job is just to stop people making mistakes, you know, to manage, like I said at the beginning, is manage the CD. I'll fall out with anyone if it means that the CD, which will last forever, will be the best CD it can possibly be. You know, I've stood in a room with a band and with all four of them, and the producer saying I'm wrong and I'm like, well, I don't care, because I know you're wrong, and I'm not going to let this. I'm just not going to risk. You know, I know it's their career and my career, and I'm not going to sit there and let them get away with the wrong choice. So, but then if you get it wrong, then they don't trust you. So it's all about trust, really.
So that's hard, isn't it, for you all of the time? The pressure for you must be quite great, and also for you as well, to take on board what Nick is saying.
You know, it was weird because I guess up until that point we'd been a very small unit, like, you know, the band, myself, Polly, and maybe like a couple of other people, and we'd done everything ourselves. I made our logo, which is still the logo we use on Microsoft Paint, on my old laptop, and you know, I used to make the videos. Recorded a lot of the songs in my bedroom or with our mate.
And we used the same artwork that we used from the very first release, pretty much.
Yeah. But so it was this, you know, we were quite a tight kind of, and it was quite nice. We just sort of got on with it ourselves. And
was TV syncing part of? Was that who did all of that?
No one. That the TV syncs that we got quite early on just kind of were complete luck. I remember getting a call and someone was like, "Your song's on a really shit TV show called Made in Chelsea." And I was like, what? Sorry? and you know, overnight, I mean, I say that, it's just, I'm quoting a friend. You know, overnight, our video had 10,000 hits on YouTube, which, you know, at the time, was for us a huge deal, and I guess, you know, still would be. So, you know, I think with TV Syncs, it was a massive help, that. But it wasn't in any way. It was never like
that, Polly, you know, in terms of, is that a great thing in terms of drawing attention to like advertising? But then we've seen it where people can be signed because, or record companies get interested because they go, oh, they've got so many followers on Twitter and Facebook, and then actually nothing happens. Yeah. Is it a false litmus test or what?
I think sometimes you can create a fan base that actually is a little bit of a... It's a specific market that gets really excited by things, but then they get excited by the next thing, and 5 minutes later. So you have to be bit... I mean, I think people have definitely made the mistake of seeing Facebook figures or YouTube figures and going, oh my God, 100,000 people love this, so let's go and sign it and give them, you know, a couple of $100,000. But actually, I think we've all learned now in the industry that you have to look a little bit further than just to kind of... You have to work out if they're actually real people or they're just a bunch of 15-year-old girls that will change their mind 5 minutes later.
But that whole technology thing has certainly shifted the way things work, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, when I started, which was the beginning of the decade of the 2000, I started it, and there was no such thing as any social media. It was just and now it's all about social media.
Well, it was doing the legwork, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. But it shows the one thing it does show, it shows connectivity. It shows that people care, and that's all we're looking for, is that people are interested. Obviously, the music has to be there, but I think to break a band, there were two elements that are absolutely vital. I don't think you can. I think without these two elements together, it's almost impossible to break. But it's have a fan base, and get media support. I think you can't sell a lot of records without either. You can get but the fan base is the most important thing, and then media support to make it a sort of.
It is weird though that with like online stuff that there is now like a tangible quantification of how many people do, and it is, and I think regardless of what you say, it is from speaking to people in labels and in media and whatever, it's especially in upcoming bands, it's such a focus. It's so weird. I've got friends in bands who've been, haven't been able to do what they want to do because they haven't had enough Facebook likes, and it's crazy how important it's become, and something that people seem to chase quite a lot as well.
Can it be a double-edged sword, though? I mean, it can hasten the process, can't it? Because we all know now there are people sat all over the world, and they're online, and they're looking for bands. Any country. People in America are looking at bands in Liverpool right now and going, right, let's get somebody to go watch them. Because, in the old days, it was a train, a flight, or whatever. It was a much slower process. It was putting something in the mail and hoping that it was passed on. Now you can, I go in to do my show every night, and there's piles and piles and piles of WAVs coming through.
That's why it's so much identification. It's so hard to find out who, you're just there's just millions of bands every day that just want to get record deals, and you can't. It's like Dragon's Den. You can only invest in a certain amount. If I signed 20 bands, I'd just be fired. I've only got a few bullets, and those bullets have to work. Otherwise, it's like that guy's not. He's costing us money. All I want ever to be as an A&R guy is making my company money, because then you're doing your job properly. And if you're losing money, and at the end of your contract they said you spent £5 million on 3 bands that didn't work, I'll get fired.
As a management company, do you feel as though you A&R?
Yeah, to a certain degree, absolutely. I mean, I guess I was the A&R for a year, effectively, or definitely a soundboard for Mark and Dan and the guys.
But A&R is collaborative between the three of us.
This is going back to that thing now, because you are a team, aren't you?
We're a really good team. This has been one of the best relationships I've had with a record label and an artist, and obviously me, manager.
I think any team is about chemistry, and I think I think Polly's it was always looking for someone that had chemistry, I guess, and the vision is the same. If you have the same vision as any business, you should have a bit more chance of success than if I had a different vision to Polly and Dan. I think it would be really difficult.
But just say, for the sake of argument, you, Dan, had gone with the bloke who hadn't heard Pompeii and, had a few ideas of his own. I mean, you could be on a completely different path by now.
I genuinely feel like with us, if we'd have signed to anywhere else, we wouldn't exist at the moment. Hopefully we'd still be alive, but we wouldn't exist as a band. I feel you hear horror stories about major labels, and you hear examples about bands getting screwed over all the time, and I feel like really, really lucky with our experience, because I'm a massive control freak and always have been, as I sort of gestured towards before, and it was quite weird suddenly signing to this massive team of people and having to relinquish control over little things.
You're not an exception, though, are you? I mean,
no,
I'm
I'm
an
sure.
artist. Yeah.
But we were given essentially all of last year. We were just given time to tour and build on what we'd done ourselves, and nothing massively changed when we were unsigned, to be honest. When it came to decision making, things didn't massively change. We just kept on releasing EPs, releasing singles, touring, building things quite slowly. I think if we'd have been with other labels, they probably would have tried to stick out our, in inverted commas, best song, and if it hadn't worked, we may well have been dropped this time last year. I think we were so lucky to have Virgin as it is, or as it has been, to sort of, I guess, to use a really cheesy word, nurture us. And by nurturing, it wasn't hands-on. I feel like a lot of times people have tried to kind of have involvement, and I've very much pushed people away. You know, Nick included has been very involved, but you know, at times I've just needed to get on with stuff, and we just need to get on with it as a band. But you know, to have the time and space and kind of, I guess, trust and investment from them, not money-wise, just in terms of letting us keep on going. You know, our build over the last couple of years has been very, very slow and you know and steady. Because
people think it's meteoric, but you know, you've put the hard work in, haven't you? You really, it's almost like an apprenticeship, and that you've really developed like, your. You
know, I wouldn't really know what to say about what's happening with us now. You know, or like trying to quantify it or say we've got to a certain place or anything, because you know, it's kind of bullshit. But it has, yeah, like you said, it's just. The only real push where I felt like we were getting a push was when our album came out massively. But before that, we were just, you know, we were allowed to kind of, it was never heavily advertised, we never received a huge amount of support from media. We just got on with it, kept our heads down, kept releasing EPs, kept releasing music. Radio 1 came on board, which we were, you know, hugely lucky to have that support. And, you know, it just kind of built quite naturally. We've done so many tours, and, you know, starting with national tours, like where regional gigs were completely empty, and then, you know, doing tiny sold-out shows, and they've grown and grown and grown. I don't know, it's felt quite sort of organic and natural.
But it, like you said, it was very slow. We put out 4 singles before the album, which is quite a rare strategy, really. And it was a proper strategy that we actually did think from day one.
And each single went in.
Well, the first single went in at 126. The second single went in at Bad Boy went in at 94. The third single went in at 21, and the fourth single went in at 2. Well, Pompeii was the fourth single, so Flaws was at 21. And then that stayed in the top 10. I can't, you know, for top 5 for 8 or 9 weeks, which is crazy.
And also, you crossed all networks, which is, you know, quite an unusual thing to actually have 1, 2, and 6 supporting
6.
Bit when you're on round table.
Yeah, that counts. Yeah.
We've had no TVs as yet, and we've had no press support really. So it's been all radio driven and
online.
fan and
online. Good reviews of the gigs,
and live. Yeah, some good reviews of the gigs. Let's not be too generous. Yeah, no, I mean it's I don't know. You know, the only experience, these guys have done it with loads of other bands before. The only experience I have is my own and the experience that we have. But you know, I think it's been a bit of a blessing to not really have, in some ways, to not have lots of support or hype or anything like that. It allowed us, particularly last year, allowed us to just get on with it, you know. We had lots of kind of expectant fans who were really, really hoping for an album a lot sooner than we put it out. But other than that, no one else really gave a shit, which was great for us, because we just sort of, we were able to, you know, for us, like playing Coco at the end of last year in London was like a really big deal. Like, you know, I went to Club Nights there years ago. I've been to so many gigs there, and that was massive for us. And you know, at the time, we were pretty, to most people and most media, like not even remotely on their radar. And the same, you know, like our tour that we've just done around the UK, which sold out. It sold out in like January or before that, long before Pompeii was kind of on the radio and stuff. And that's, I don't know. I think, yeah, I don't know. I feel like not in any kind of gross backpatting kind of way, but I just feel really happy with the fact that up to that point, we got to a point where I think a lot of bands would be quite comfortable getting to a point where you could do a national tour and do 2 Shepherd Bush Empires off the back of 2 weeks on B-list with Flaws, and that was it. No media support.
So actually what you've done prior to getting the deal really has played such a crucial part in the stage you're at now.
I think so, yeah. I mean, you know, like you alluded to before, like we were very lucky to have you know, a couple of syncs on TV that really kind of, some of them sort of came from nowhere, and that was never like an intention or a strategy. That was just something that, you know, when those things happen to you as a new band, you're like, oh, that's weird and cool, I guess. And if people find your music, you cannot turn your nose up at how they come across it.
Well, you know, talking about the TV thing or just the whole web thing, I mean, aren't we all A&Ring now? I mean, I know that I'll get people going, I've seen this person, here's a link, I think you might like it, or check this out, and I'll pass something on to somebody else, and you know, so it's evolving, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you take notice if somebody, you know, like Joe Soap sent you an email and went, I noticed you've signed Bastille, I've got a link here to a band that I think you might like. Would you take notice of it?
No, I delete it immediately.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't deal with it. It's too much. I don't have the time for that, for just rant. I mean, people think A&Rs just sit there. I mean, it's the most labour-intensive job. I mean, I'm literally, you flogged
Take us through
to
a day.
death. Oh, my God.
Oh, it'll be hard.
We just do meetings after meetings.
Seen you in
meetings.
your office.
It's like I mean, I wish I could actually do A&R, but you just spend your time, because, you know, as an A&R, you're ultimately the project manager for the band through the label. You know, Polly manages Dan sort of outside of the label. I manage Dan within the label. I make sure that everything is, like, everyone is doing their job, and part of the skill of an A&R man is driving the project, because there's 4 or 5 A&Rs at every label, and they're all signing 2 or 3 acts a year, and it's your skill in a way of kind of psychology of making people invest in your choice, you know, because they don't, you know, you sign Bastille, there's 20 people at a label who are like, Bastille, so what? You know what I mean? They're not interested. You know, they've got 15 other acts that they're worried about. You know, but you have to basically plug your act through the label to make them go, you know what? Actually, it's worth me doing the extra mile. And the only way any act is ever successful is by everyone on the team going 100% and making the product the best it possibly can be. You know, the artwork, the videos, you know, the whole creative process of like getting down to sort of, because the only 2 things the public care about is the record and the aesthetic, the presentation of it. And if you get any of that wrong and it doesn't quite make sense, and you know, it's like walking a tightrope, the whole thing, breaking an act. I always think like there's a load of crocodiles below you, and you're walking across the jungle, and you're any false move, any mistake, and you're over. That's it. It's like the FA Cup. You know, even if you're Man United, you'll be knocked out on a Wednesday night at Burnley if you have a shit game, and it's like that with a label. One bad single, one bad video.
That's what you're remembered for.
You sort of, and then it's like, you know, it's all about, you've got a momentum. It's all about keeping.
You're making it sound so much fun as well. You make it
the fun. There's, I mean, yeah.
Is somebody breathing down your neck?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it's a business. I mean, the top end, it's purely a business. So if you think about it, it just trickles down from pure...
Nick is on the edge of suicide every day.
Yeah, to be fair, that's quite accurate.
But you surely are the middle person in all of this then, because if Nick has issues or anything he needs to discuss, he's not going to ring Dan up, is he? Or does he? I don't know.
It varies. We're all pretty open and transparent with each other, to be honest with you. There's no kind of like law.
Are you an exception? You sound very, you know, happy.
It gets really stressful and it can be really shitty sometimes. But yeah, there's definitely a respect here, I think. So if Nick wants to speak to Dan, I'm not kind of freaking out, going, oh my God, the label's calling the artist or whatever.
Also, again, with the control freak thing, it's really important to me, and always has been, to have a relationship with every single person that's working on our band. You know, we went from it being just us to a huge team of people. I know everyone that works on our team. I sat with them at their desk and like peered over their shoulder and annoyed them, because it's important, I think, for me. Yeah. It's not for other people, but you know, I care about our artwork, I care about our videos, I care about everything, the whole package, the whole aesthetic, everything from our stage show to, you know, whatever. And so I think it would be weird for me if Nick couldn't pick up the phone and give me a call about something, because...
But it's a real skill of Polly's, I think, that she lets that happen. Because some don't do that. Some management really block relationships, and it's about ego, and it's almost their control freaks, and they don't want to lose control of their artists. But
some managers can be so detrimental to an artist's career and really put the blocks on that nobody can get hold of them, and the artists don't know what's going on.
Totally, yeah.
So as you say, that, you know, the relationship between you and when it comes to, because I know, Dan, you are not stopping this year. I mean, you're going all over the world doing festivals, working your socks off, going to Japan for the first time, which is going to be great, and doing Glastonbury. You're everywhere, aren't you? Secret Garden.
Festival, Isle of Wight, Reading and Leeds.
And so do you have to liaise on that as well? Because if the record company... You know what I mean? Are there projects where you have to take into account everything that's going on?
How do you mean?
Well, you know, if everything's being sorted in terms of you're going to be off and not around, you know, sort of not necessarily in this country. You know, I mean, for promo, if something's going to happen.
To be honest with you, I'm always sort of 6 months ahead of Dan. Yeah. So what's actually happening now, I did 6 months ago. So all the planning and the trips and the...
So what's happening at Christmas?
Yeah, what is happening at
Christmas?
That's our first 2 weeks off of the year. That's
really?
What we've been told. Yeah.
Well, you're going to be in America until the 15th, actually.
Now here we've got lots of people who are young managers, probably have labels, probably got some artists here, am I right? A mix of people. What advice do you give them, do you think? What advice do you wish somebody had given you?
God, I think it's just believe in your instincts, because that is the music business, you know. It's just and learn and just make sure that most people think they know everything in the music. That's the one thing I think in the music business. Everyone thinks they know everything about everything, and then they make mistakes. Like life in general, people think, you know, and it's just listen and learn and wait your time. Like you know, A&Rs, a lot of them sign things really early and then fuck it up, and then it all goes pear-shaped. I took 4 years really to sign my first act, but then that was the Thrills, and it suddenly went platinum because I almost had to learn my craft before I did it. And I think
was anybody saying to you, "Come on, 4 years, mate, hurry up"?
Well, it was actually in a different label, an indie label, and I was lucky. I tried to sign a lot of things that were did really well, and I didn't because of my label. It wasn't good enough. People always want to go to that's one thing that people don't realise about being an A&R. It's all about, as much as about you, it's about your label.
Can you study a label if you're an artist?
Can you what?
Study a label? Can you find out
loads about absolutely, them? Yeah. Well, people often sign to labels because of the roster, really, as much as anything, and your brand. I mean, an A&R guy becomes a brand. I mean, it's like it's a producer or an artist. You become the person that that guy signed, blah blah blah. So I want to sign. I know he can do a job. It's all about confidence and trust, isn't it? And if I've signed the Kooks, the Thrills, and Bastille, then someone might go, well, my band sounds similar like that guy's. But then if there was something else, they might go, he's not for me. It's like when I look for a producer for my acts, you just think, who's done things that I think are similar to the acts that I've got. You know, you're just looking for confidence in that. You know, and I don't know. Going back to the question about what the advice is, I mean, just keep on doing what you do and just be good. But it's literally, you've got to be. It's like an artist. You've got. I mean, people can sit here crying, I want to be the biggest artist in the world. But if you're not talented, then go and do something that you're really good at. And if you're a good A&R, I mean, just keep going, because I just think, like, if you haven't been spotted yet, then you're either not talented enough or you're not patient enough. Time will come, your time will be there when the time is right.
And if you'd like to be an A&R person, is that difficult? Do you be a scout first? Or
yeah, you got to. I mean, I was in a band and I got dropped, and I learned a lot from that, because I learned about the whole record-making process and how about labels. I was signed to EMI for 3 years, and I learned what not to do, really. So I got a little I was a work experience for 3 days and ended up getting a scouting job and did that for, because that's just go out and find music and learn about it. And the one thing I definitely advise is is your music taste. That's the hardest thing about being an A&R guy, is you've got to almost bury your music taste, because it's not about you. It's not about you, it's about
so what, do you go home and listen to Slipknot, or?
Well, I mean, it's about finding music that's great for the world, not just for your record collection. I mean, it's not a hobby. I think people think A&R is a hobby. Like, you know, I love this band, so I'm just going to go and sign my record collection. It's like, that's fine if you don't, you know, but if you want to do it for a career, you've got to sign things that the world wants to hear.
And that's going back to where we started, where you actually visualise the whole thing. You hear the song, you see the artist, and then you see where it goes.
Yeah,
from. Absolutely.
And ultimately, it's always about the songwriting. I think the only thing that people forget is that we are selling songs at the end. That's our product. That's what a musician does. It's they write a song and it has value, and it only has value if it's vital. That's the only thing that matters, if it's vital, because why would someone spend $7.99 on a piece of music that's not vital to them? And you know, I just think you need to make great, you know, music. Song doesn't need music to be great. It just needs you can sing a song, you know, if you sing Hey Jude, it doesn't need music. And people get caught up in all kinds of things, and if you just go back to the quality of the songwriting, that's all I look for, really. And a great voice. Yeah. Because it has to have a vehicle to carry the song. You know, a great song sung by someone who can't sing is not going to work.
Well, it's not necessarily being technically a great singer,
no,
either.
It's having passion. It's having emotion. If you listen to radio, it's like you hear things and it connects with you, and connectivity is something that carrying emotion in your voice. That's what I think the skill of an artist is to have the emotion. That's a saying.
What's that saying?
That's saying someone from LA is trying to call me.
Oh, right.
Is that on the phone?
Yeah.
And in terms of management, is it crucial for a band at an early stage to seek management, or do they do it on their own for a while?
I think it depends on the band, to be honest with you, and the manager.
And can managers be sort of stuffed when they get a deal sometimes? I've seen that where a record company will sign a band and go, as long as you get rid of them.
Yeah, there's certainly some managers out there that do lose their bands when they sign to certain labels. It's hard to say. I think some bands can do it on their own to a certain... There'll always become a point where you need a manager, and that might be quite far down the line, or that might be really early on. With Dan, for instance, I thought there was an awful lot there. It just needed someone with a bit of patience and vision, rather than, to me, the songs were always there, the talent was already there. It just needed a little bit of time for Dan to come out of himself live and get used to this sort of thing and all that stuff, which isn't natural to everybody.
It's the first time we've ever done this.
This is the first time we've done this. But you know what I mean, press,
You're
promo.
nurturing, aren't you?
Yeah, and having patience and belief. And it doesn't matter if everything doesn't work out straight away. You don't just suddenly go, okay, this is fucked, it's all over. Just kind of release another record like we did. Do loads more shows and keep going, because it will happen. And I think if that manager and that artist believe in the same thing, it will happen.
And do you feel sometimes... I mean,
I guess if people are liking it, though.
Yeah,
like a manager and artist could fucking love it, but no one could be coming to the show.
No, obviously you have to have people...
It'll happen one day. We're 80. Give up.
I'm just talking from our perspective.
Yeah, no.
Well, there must be moments where you see the morale being really low. Not to say really, but there are ups and downs and what
absolutely.
have you. And how do you cope with that? And how do you keep them going? Or
You've been really good at that, actually.
I was trying to think what I say normally. I don't
know
know.
what you say. But...
Again, just patience. And just kind of... The thing with Dan is I've always been really transparent. I've never lied to him. I've always told him when it's good, when it's bad. Obviously, I don't tell him terrible news the minute he's about to walk on stage. But if something isn't going well, I'll be like, this isn't going as well as we hoped. So Dan has always known that pretty much everything I'm telling him is the truth. I think, there's no point in kind of lying to the artist just to keep them sweet, because they're going to find out eventually anyway.
And it can be a fickle industry, can't it?
Yeah, and also warning him as well before if he's going into something that might not be as cool as we thought, just to kind of prep them, keep them prepped all the time, give them as much information as possible. That's how you stop people getting really down and really depressed or really freaked out.
When you say information, what do you mean by that?
Information about what sort of promo they're doing, what's the gig going to be like, who's turning up, who are they talking to, just prepping the band as much as we can.
And both of you, how honest or brutal have you had to be at certain points? Or not at all, maybe, but not necessarily with you.
No,
but
yeah,
you know what I mean, with an artist.
I mean, the funny thing is, I was thinking about the first time I went down to the studio, the very first time we signed them, and I remember we were talking about Pompeii. Obviously was the one that we all loved, and I remember going, so let's do Pompeii first, go redo it, because it was a demo. And I remember you going, yeah, I've changed the drums, they sound fucking awesome. I'm like, straight away I'm thinking, uh-oh. And then we get down the studio and you don't...
Yeah, no, that's
your
your A&Ring moment, was in with Pompeii. Because, what we've released is very similar to the demo. Obviously, I think it sounds a little bit better now, but we've sort of got a bit carried away.
Well, I remember just you going, it sounds fucking awesome, press play, and I'm sitting there going... What the fuck?
Please put it back to what it was before, please.
And it sounded his drums was God knows what you're doing.
We thought it'd been slowed down, didn't we? We thought it was really slow.
And then I just turned around and went, I fucking hate it. And you were like absolutely ashen white, weren't you? And that was it. And that was sort of, and I just said,
fucking
go back to the
hated
demo.
you.
Yeah, no. And you were like, but it was just like, go back to the demo. I was like, what you did was working. Do that. And
I think that's a really interesting point as well. That's kind of. I think where we've been lucky as well is sort of not lucky. We've never really messed with what we've kind of as a team have always done. Like Nick never sort of waded in like heavy-handedly trying to mould what we were doing. And as a label, I think we were never really, apart from me having to be in videos and me having to be in photos. Other than that, I feel like really happy with the whole experience. And
it's quite a lot.
Just quite a little, just a little bugbear.
Just a tiny point.
But other than that, it was very much like, it was just quite like an open process. And I think that maybe came from having been quite far down the line before we signed. We'd been gigging for ages. We'd written most of an album, all that kind of stuff. I think it's probably when a band signs quite early and then the label has a very different idea of what they are to the band. I think that's when things get hideously wrong.
Yeah, I always think A&R, if you have to change too much, then there's something drastically wrong.
yeah.
You shouldn't sign it.
Well, it's like having a relationship and going, well, I'll change it.
Yeah, totally.
Because
the reality of A&R is finding the core of the artist. You know, sometimes artists can be talented, but there's a lot of the mixed messages. Like it's all over the place. Like, my job is just to find the core of that artist. So it's not changing it. It's just sometimes it's like editing, sort of like a badly written script. Sometimes you can just go a few bits of red ink and it's going to be great. And that's a little bit with A&R. It's almost like if you have to actually change it, then it's fundamentally flawed. But if you just if you just hone it and choose the right songs and get rid of the songs that aren't good enough. And, you know, sometimes the artist's most hated song is their best song. That's the kind of guarantee. But if the artist says he hates it, it's probably its first single. And you weren't too bad, to be fair, with Pompeii. No, you sort of didn't mind that one, yeah.
I like Pompeii.
But with Kooks, the Kooks, Naive was their most hated song. When they hated it, they thought it was the shittest song they'd ever written. And they only recorded it because I forced them into it at the last. That was one bit of A&R where it was actually you are doing this whether you like it or not.
Is that why he sounds so pissed off on the record?
Yeah, exactly. It was one take. He was literally like just to please me, and then it ended up being their biggest song, and then they play it. But that was
humble brag.
Exactly. But I think if you went to Prince and said, "What's your favourite song?" he'd probably choose a B-side off his third album that no one's ever heard of. He'd probably go, "Why the fuck does anyone like Purple Rain?"
Purple Rain, yeah.
So sometimes it's just advising the artist on what's the singles really. Is that hard? Because often artists aren't very good at single choices, I find.
Where's your head at the moment? Are you on to your next artist?
I've got a band called Churches that I signed.
Good, they're good.
And I'm working on, and I've got a young singer-songwriter called Josh Record that I really like as well. Yeah, really good.
And you've got Ghostwriter?
I've got Ghostwriter, yeah.
Things going well there?
Yeah, he's just had a massive hit. He wrote Waiting All Night for Rudimental.
Brilliant.
So he's enjoying a big moment in the top 10 at the moment. It's quite good, actually, to artists selling a lot of records.
It's great.
Unusual.
Congratulations to you all. And good luck to you. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
Nice to meet you.
Having bought your album, as I said.
Thanks.
So it's nice to meet you. And you're doing a gig here tonight, aren't you?
We are 1:30 in the morning. In a car park that apparently only gets opened for this festival.
Oh, the car park that Django did last year.
Was it?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's a good venue, that.
It's like a
You'll
rave.
enjoy it. Hey?
Like a warehouse rave.
Yeah.
It won't be at 1:30 in the morning.
Thank you all for your time. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of Sound City. Thank you to Polly Comber, to Dan Smith, and to Nick Burgess. Take care.